see a televised debate this year between Roger Wicker and Ty Pinkins, but we still have hard questions for these two candidates for the U.S. Senate. It's the Republican incumbent and the Democratic challenger on immigration and the southern border, raging conflicts in the Middle East, abortion bans and reproductive rights, tariffs, inflation, and more. Tonight on a special edition of Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us for this October 14th edition of Mississippi Insight. For the next hour, we'll hear directly from the two candidates for representing Mississippi in one of the most powerful deliberative bodies on the planet. Roger Wicker has been serving Mississippi in the U.S. Senate since 2007. The Republican from Pontotoc has championed pro-growth policies and limited federal overreach and worked to maintain a strong national defense. Wicker's Democratic challenger, Ty Pinkins, is a native of Rolling Fork, a civil rights attorney, and a retired U.S. Army officer and combat veteran. His campaign emphasizes service, leadership, and a commitment to addressing the needs of his constituents. We conducted our candidate interviews on the 9th and 10th of October. Each spoke with us for a little over 35 minutes. These interviews have been edited for time. We asked each man similar questions on some of the key topics in American political debate today. We'll begin with each candidate's take on extreme weather and the federal response to it. We are in the heart of hurricane season with two major storms in Mississippi averted Francine last month. FEMA has been criticized for their handling of Helene by President Trump and other Republicans, but the Republican governors say that they're getting what they need. Does FEMA deserve some criticism?
Well, I think the bureaucracy of the federal government deserves some criticism, absolutely. And I know what I see on the news media, and particularly the people in Western North Carolina and East Tennessee. What I'm seeing them, and this is not only on the cable stations, also on network news, the 7 o'clock a.m. Newscast. There are people who are saying they really haven't received anything, and of course, frankly, Graham has a charity, and thank goodness for our charitable organizations. But some of the things I'm hearing, just on the media, which you all provide, is that really they're getting more help from the charitable organizations than they are from the federal government. I know it's tough, and we're going to have another huge economic disaster within the next 24 to 48 hours with this new hurricane that's headed toward Tampa. And probably some of the criticism won't be based totally on the facts, but it does seem really that our whole bureaucracy, because of the rules and regulations and constraints, and because people have done it over and over and over, is cumbersome and needs to be more streamlined. I know we've had that frustration with our tornadoes here, and of course we've been through major hurricanes ourselves, and I think part of it is state leadership knowing how to work with the federal government and knowing how to get the process going and streamline it. So it's a matter of local, state, and federal partnership, but the federal government has that responsibility under the statute. And again, one of my goals is to help constituents, and often that's cities and counties and boards of aldermen and boards of supervisors working their way through the process.
The Biden administration says that they have enough money to handle Helene recovery, and Milton should, if they need to. But if they don't have enough money, would you support getting more money for FEMA to handle these disasters?
We're going to need a disaster supplemental appropriation, and we'll look at the facts, and we'll look at the needs, and we don't want to just be throwing money at a problem, but we'll look at the facts on the ground as they're provided to us. And I think we can probably do this the second or third week of November. I think we can hold out until then, but if we find out from the Office of Management and Budget that there's not enough, the President and the leadership of the House and Senate can call us back in for a day or two to get that straight.
There have been some, particularly in your party, who have said that the government is causing these storms. What's your response to that?
I really don't buy that. I don't buy that. If you look at the facts, we've had terrible storms, and some of them back to back a century ago, before we were nearly as developed as we are now. And I think there's a debate going on, and I sort of subscribe to what J.D. Vance said in the vice presidential debate. We can have that debate, but let's acknowledge storms are more expensive now because we have more development. We have more expensive buildings. Our residences cost more, and so to replace them simply costs more money. I've yet to see the statistics that show that storms are more frequent or stronger than they used to be. I think they're just more expensive.
Is climate change real?
I think climate change is real. The climate has been changing for millions and millions of years. My dad's and my uncle's farm in Pontotoc County, Mississippi, has a place where you can go get seashells. I mean, clearly that part of Mississippi, way in northeast Mississippi, was underwater centuries and millions of years ago, and clearly the climate changed. I don't think it changed back then because of anything that humans did or animals did or whatever. I just think that it's inevitable. If you look over the millions and hundreds of thousands of years, that climate does change, and it will continue to change.
All of our institutions should be held accountable. However, I also think that FEMA is doing a great job. The criticisms that FEMA are getting from President Trump and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, we can't even take that stuff seriously. When we have an elected official like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is literally getting on television and saying that Democrats can control the weather, and things that President Trump is saying is just causing more problems. I have personal experience with FEMA. My hometown of Rolling Fork was hit by a tornado about a year ago. And as a lawyer, I left the campaign trail and I sat in living rooms with elderly community members who had lost everything. I sat there and I filled out FEMA applications for over 100 people. And here's what happened. When I hit enter, I got a response from FEMA. And those community members got $750 into their bank account immediately so that they can get that money in their pocket so they can start taking care of some things. Then what happened was FEMA reached out to those community members and they asked them simple questions like, what's the condition of your home? Is it damaged or is it completely destroyed? Did you have a car? How many people were in your house? And they asked those questions for a specific reason, so that FEMA could determine how much more money they needed to compensate themselves for their losses. And community members got tens of thousands of dollars, needed money to help them. And FEMA's doing the same thing right now. So when people like Donald Trump get on television and say that FEMA's only giving people $750, he's intentionally not telling the whole story of all the good work that FEMA does. And I have personal experience with it with my parents who are in the hospital right now. I found them after that tornado in the dark, alone. My blind and double amputee dad. Now, a couple of years after that, FEMA has helped them get a house to live in, has made sure that they were compensated for their losses, and now they feel better and they're in a better place. And I think FEMA's doing that same work for communities that were affected by Hurricane Helena and also this current hurricane. It's not easy. It is hard work. And when these things happen, when hurricanes hit and tornadoes hit, the fix is not going to be tomorrow. It is a long-term process that takes years to make these communities whole. And we need to take time to thank these FEMA workers who are doing this hard work in these communities, not criticize them all the time.
The Biden administration says that they have enough money to handle Helene, but they should have enough money to handle Milton. But if they don't have the money, if you're elected, would you support more money for FEMA?
Not only would I support more money for FEMA, I would also point out some of the shortcomings from some of our elected officials. We had Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf of Mississippi in 2005, totally destroyed Biloxi, Gulfport, those communities. I just mentioned the tornado that hit Rolling Fork. In 2021, Senator Roger Wicker did not vote. He voted against funding FEMA, and he needs to be held accountable for that because we know that climate change is real. We see what's happened to Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina because of Hurricane Helena. We see what's happening down in Florida right now as you and I speak. So for someone like Senator Wicker to have his own constituents in Mississippi, to have witnessed and been affected by the ravages of a hurricane, and after that he goes and votes against funding FEMA, he needs to be held accountable for that. And that's one of the reasons I'm running, because we have to take this partisanship out of our politics and put the country before a party. And I think that's hard for him to do.
From the Gulf of Mexico to the Middle East, what do the Senate candidates have to say about Israel's whining war against its enemies? We're back in a moment.